Nina said something tragic and Port Charles is watching it happen. Let us start with Nina's warning, because the specific quality of a prophecy spoken out loud in a soap opera is never accidental. When a character looks at a situation and says with genuine fear that something truly tragic is going to happen if things do not change, that is the show speaking directly to its audience. It is both a character moment and a narrative promise. And the promise Nina made in that argument with Willow is now actively being kept by everything unfolding around them. Nina saw it clearly. She saw Willow operating with the confidence of someone who believes she has won, and the recklessness of someone who has stopped calculating consequences. She watched her daughter dismiss every concern, push away every attempt at perspective, and insist that she held all the cards in a situation where Nina could see that the cards were about to be reshuffled in a way Willow did not anticipate. Willow had convinced herself that the drugging situation was her leverage. That Michael's association with Jacinda's terrible decision was the thing she could use to finally get the upper hand in the custody situation. She walked out of Nina's apartment feeling powerful and certain and ready to make demands. She had no idea what was sitting in Michael's kitchen waiting for her. Trina and Kai's signed affidavits. The ringtone. The phone records. The specific, documented, sworn evidence that Willow was the person who shot Drew, placed in Michael's hands by two young people who decided that the children's well-being mattered more than their own discomfort, and who walked into the Quartermaine kitchen and handed Michael everything he needed to completely reverse the power dynamic between them. The confrontation that followed was extraordinary. Willow arrived believing she had leverage. Michael allowed her to make her threats. And then he laid out what he had with the controlled certainty of a man who has been patient all summer and is now using that patience. He did not yell. He did not escalate. He was, in many ways, the calmest person in that kitchen, and that calm was more devastating than anything he could have said in anger. Willow picked up a rolling pin. He stopped her. He told her it was a little harder to hurt someone face to face than sneaking up behind their back. That reference, to the night she shot Drew twice from behind while he was not expecting it, was the most specifically cruel thing Michael has said to her all summer. And it was earned. And it was devastating. And Willow had no answer for it. She accepted the terms. She did not have any other move. But here is where Nina's warning becomes most relevant. Because Willow accepting terms under duress and Willow actually honoring those terms are different things. Willow moving into the gatehouse under Michael's supervision is Willow in a situation she will try to escape from the moment an opportunity presents itself. The terms may control her behavior in the immediate sense. They do not address the underlying state she is in, which is a woman who has been pushed to her absolute limit and who has demonstrated repeatedly that limits do not actually hold her when she decides they do not. Nina warned that the escalation could produce something truly tragic. The escalation has not stopped. It has simply shifted terrain. Willow in the gatehouse is not Willow at peace. It is Willow in a cage, looking for the door. The tragedy Nina feared is still coming. The question is what form it takes and who is in the room when it arrives. Brennan as collateral damage and what comes after him. Now let us talk about Brennan's exit and the increasingly interesting question of how exactly it happens, because the scenarios being considered go beyond the heroic Jen's showdown and now include something more personal and more immediately connected to the war between Michael and Willow. Brennan has been a participant in the Willow-Nina situation all summer. He has covered things. He has deployed leverage. He has used his institutional position to protect people who needed protecting from consequences they had earned. He has been, in the specific and documented way of Port Charles's morally complicated characters, both helpful and harmful depending on where you are standing in relation to what he has done. What that makes him, in the context of the escalating Willow-Michael conflict, is someone with skin in the game. If Willow decides to move against Michael, if the acceptance of Michael's terms converts into something that looks more like action once the opportunity presents itself, Brennan is the person in Willow and Nina's orbit with the most capacity to either help or interfere. He knows too much. He has been too involved. And his instinct to protect Nina, which has been genuine all summer, means he is not going to stand at a safe distance if the situation with Michael becomes dangerous. The collateral damage scenario is terrifying in its logic. Willow doing something to Michael, or attempting to, and Brennan being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Not the intended target. Not the person Willow's action was aimed at, but the person who ends up hurt because he stepped in when the situation escalated past the point that anyone around Willow is safe. That is a different kind of exit than the heroic WSB showdown with Jens. But it is not a less meaningful one. A man who spent the summer covering for people who did terrible things, dying, because one of those people went further than even he anticipated, that is a consequence with a specific moral weight. It says something about the cost of proximity to Willow's specific kind of desperation. And then comes the question the show's more playful corner raised, but that is genuinely worth considering. What happens to the WSB chief role after Brennan? Who fills that specific institutional space? Jocelyn. The idea of Jocelyn eventually ascending to a position that's significant is being floated with a knowing wink at how quickly her trajectory has moved. She arrived this summer as a rookie field agent. She took down Cullum. She is being considered for her next assignment. She is simultaneously being offered her father's company. And now the possibility that the position Brennan occupied, the one that has been the center of the WSB's Port Charles operations all summer, might eventually be hers, is being introduced. That is a long game for a character who has been introduced as someone still proving herself. But soap operas play long games. And Jocelyn's specific combination of gifts, the instinct, the fearlessness, the willingness to operate outside the lines when she believes the situation demands it, is exactly the combination that produces institutional leaders in organizations like the WSB. The same qualities that might contribute to Brennan's death are the qualities that make her a compelling future for the role he currently holds. Whether the show goes there depends on where Jocelyn's story lands after the fall's events unfold. But the seed has been planted. And seeds planted in a soap opera do not stay dormant for long. Cassius is alive and everything Jocelyn thinks she knows is wrong. And finally, let us sit fully with the Cassius revelation, because this one has been hiding in plain sight, and the implications of it are going to ripple through Jocelyn's story in ways that none of the summer's other developments quite match. The head of the WSB, Z, made a specific decision after the events on Spoon Island. Cassius did not die. Z faked that death and put Cassius to work. The villain framing that was constructed around Cassius, the narrative that made him the fall guy for the Cold Fusion project, that directed the blame for the entire operation away from Cullum and onto a man who was himself a victim of circumstance, was a deliberate institutional choice. Jocelyn was required to cooperate with that choice. She had to participate in the version of events that the WSB wanted told. She did it believing she understood what had happened and what the consequences of her cooperation were. She did not understand. The consequence she thought she was accepting, that Cassius was dead, and the story of his death was being shaped for organizational reasons, was not the actual consequence. The actual consequence is that Cassius is alive. He is now a colleague, and the deal Jocelyn struck helped smear the name of a living person who did not choose to be in the position he was in. The enormity of that, once Jocelyn finds out, is going to be genuinely difficult to sit with. She is not a cruel person. She did not intend to participate in something that damaged a living man's reputation. She believed the story she was telling was the truth, or at least a version of events that accounted for a man who is no longer around to be hurt by it. The discovery that he was around, that he has been around all along, working within the organization that required her to cooperate, is the kind of thing that produces a specific and uncomfortable form of guilt. Not the guilt of malice, but the guilt of participation without full information. The reunion scenario, Jocelyn getting into trouble during a field operation and Cassius appearing to pull her out of it, is the most dramatically satisfying way to deliver this revelation. Not a formal briefing where Z reveals the truth in an official capacity. A moment of genuine rescue, where the person doing the rescuing is someone who should not exist as far as Jocelyn knows. The shock of that would be immediate and physical and impossible to dismiss or manage in a way that formally delivered information can be managed. Cassius showing up, alive, trained, serving the same organization, and Jocelyn having to confront in real time what she helped do to a person she can now see standing in front of her. That is the scene the summer has been building toward for this particular thread.